This is Made for More Living with Johnny Jennings, powered by eXp Realty. Online at madeformoreliving.com.
Do you hate taxes? Do you wish there was a way that you could just maybe pay a little bit when selling a property? Well, guess what? You are in for a treat today. We have Donalee Ham with Asset Preservation, and she is going to be talking about 1031 exchanges. Welcome to the show, Donalee.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so 1031 exchanges, this is a term people throw out on TikTok, on Instagram. People talk about it in real estate circles, but in the most basic, most simple term, it's not a scary term. It's a good term because you're saving on taxes. You're deferring taxes.
Deferring.
Yep. Asterisk, right. Deferring.
The key is always defer. It's not going to go away, right?
Nope, you're not avoiding, you're deferring.
But it's a useful tool. So in the most basic sense, what is a 1031 exchange?
1031 exchange is a way to defer capital gain taxes on the sale of investment property if you exchange into a different or new type of investment property.
Okay, so you sold the property, you want to exchange it for another property. So property A, you're exchanging it for property B, and you're able to defer the taxes on property A.
You got it.
Awesome. And so, but this isn't just for residential property, right?
Nope. A lot of people think it's for billionaires or millionaires, like uber rich people, but it is for anybody that owns any type of real property that they use as an investment property. So, your usual person that owns an investment property like a rental property, or somebody that owns a multi-million-dollar commercial a commercial building. Sure.
So you actually had a great story. So there's a large range about a feed store. You mind sharing the feed story?
Sure. So we had an investor client that owned a feed store in Colorado. They'd owned it for, a long time, maybe 20 years or so, and were kind of busting at the seams, so to speak. They wanted to continue to grow their business, but they didn't have any room to continue to do that. So they found a new location that they wanted to move into, but didn't want to pay the capital gain taxes on what they were selling, which would have been extensive given the amount of time that they had owned that building.
So what are we talking about, like in terms of dollars?
I think it probably would have been north of about $100,000 in capital gain taxes.
So just money off the top straight to the government.
Yep, money off the top straight to the government. So they did a 1031 exchange. They exchanged out of that feed store, out of that property, moved their business to a much larger property. The $100,000 that they would have paid in capital gain taxes, they were able to use that as more of a down payment on the new property. So basically increased their buying power, took on less of a loan, and were able to continue to grow and expand their business.
Awesome. And so you just casually threw out there in Colorado. So what area, what's your geographic servicing area like? Where do you work?
We're a national 1031 exchange company, so we're doing this in all 50 states. And if you are one of those lucky people that own property internationally, we can even handle international exchanges.
Interesting. So they actually have, is it anywhere in the globe, or is it like places like Puerto Rico where you do exchanges?
There are a couple of countries that are considered U.S. property. So you can exchange U.S. property for U.S. property, or international property for international property. So if you own property in Mexico and you want to buy an investment property in Paris, you can do that. So it's global. They can be tricky, but it can be done most of the time. Or you can exchange U.S. property for U.S. property. And that's like Guam, the U.S. Mariana Islands, and I think Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I would guess Puerto Rico.
Right? You'd hope so. I had a question about the that feed store you were talking about. You talked about they got to keep that extra $100,000 towards the down payment and everything towards a new property. And you also said that this is a deferral of taxes. So when ultimately does the government get paid? Can they just keep transferring and getting new property, or how does that process work for a company like that?
Yeah, so they can continue to exchange over and over. So if they want to, let's say 10 years down the road, they've expanded, they need to expand again, or let's say they just want to get out of the feed store business altogether and they want to diversify their investments further, they can continue to exchange over and over and continue to defer. If at some point they decide they just don't want to be investment property owners anymore and they decide to sell, then they would pay their taxes at that point. If they continue to exchange and then they pass away, that's when the taxes would go away. But studies have been done that 80% of people end up paying their taxes at some point in their life.
They eventually cash out.
They do eventually cash out. So.
Okay, and there's no interest. It's not like there's a loan with the government. It's just sitting there, and the taxes have been deferred.
Yep, there's no interest. There's no loan with the government. You're just putting off payment of the taxes. So when you purchase a property, that is the basis in the property. Instead of getting a new, much higher basis in the new property, that low basis in the property that you sold is carrying over into the new property. And so that's how that capital gain is being deferred. So you're just carrying over a low basis into the next property.
So the longer somebody has a 1031, when you factor in inflation and the fact that there's no interest or payment on this, arguably the less their tax bill is really going down, because 10 grand 30 years ago is a way different 10 grand than $10,000 today. So if they did a 1031 a while ago, they may still, that those taxes were deferred, but really in today's dollars, it's much smaller. Is that correct?
The tax bill would not go down.
Yeah.
It's going, their tax bill is invariably going to get higher.
Okay.
Because they're putting off paying their taxes.
Okay.
So, if you have a $100,000 taxable gain today, and you put off paying that for 10 years, and then you have gain on top of that new property, let's say there's, another $20,000 gain on that new property, you sell that, you're going to have a $120,000 gain that you're going to pay when you sell that new property. So again, it's not avoidance. You're not reducing your tax liability. You're just putting off payment of that tax liability.
Yeah, totally get it. But I'm probably doing a horrible job of explaining it. But the longer you wait to pay the taxes, as long as inflation continues, the value of that tax burden is technically, like, the number's not changing, but the value's changing.
Yeah, time value money.
Yeah, exactly.
So the $120,000 that they owe in 2024 is going to be drastic. I mean, it'll be the same $120,000, but in 2020 or 2034, it's like, oh, well, that's about the cost of a car now.
Yeah, that's a Honda Civic.
There we
True,
go.
but the value of that property is also going to go up significantly as well. So being able to use that $100,000 that you would have otherwise paid the government to purchase that investment property, that's going to give you tax cash flow over that period of time. Also, that's going to create a great deal of value for you, is going to probably be more beneficial than paying your taxes now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. And then, but this isn't just for feed stores. You said it's for all types of real property. Can you give us some other examples of like things that you commonly run into that people use 1031s for? Yeah,
so commonly we see a lot of residential properties. So you have a rental single family. Let's look at a single family residence. Those are really popular right now. People are buying up single family residences to rent them out. So that's a big chunk of business for us. But we also see a lot of people selling a single-family residence that they've been renting out for a lot of years and wanting to diversify into, maybe they want to buy multiple single-family residences, or they want to get into multifamily residence. That's a really great way of increasing cash flow. Or maybe they want to get into more passive investments like UPREITs or REITs or Delaware statutory trusts. Maybe they want to.
So you can roll into that. You can roll into a Delaware statutory trust.
Yep, those qualify as real property. So
now there are some requirements. I know we don't want to get too much into the weeds. We just want them to just call you so you can do all the heavy lifting for them. But there are some basic rules surrounding a 1031. Do you mind just hitting the bullet points?
Sure. So you have, the first bullet point is that you have to be selling real property that you held for investment. So it can't be anything that you live in. It can't be anything that you're flipping or that you're holding just for the purpose of reselling.
And on that question, so like if I have a home and like I get married, whatever I have, and I move in with my future wife, and now my house is
Do you have
available.
plans? Are we talking like hypothetical or just...
Theoretically, at some point. But so I move into her house, and now the house that I own is empty. What is there something that I have to do to turn that into an investment property, or is it just the fact that I'm renting it out to someone? Does that qualify as a rental or an investment property?
Yeah, just rent it out.
Okay.
For like 1 month and it's considered an investment?
Nah, I'd season it for a year or two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So rent it out for a year or two. Check, most people would say 2 years is a good amount of time to rent it out. You have to have the exchange open prior to selling or closing escrow on the sale. If you don't, then you have a taxable event. So,
or is there like we're getting in the weeds here, but reverse 1031, isn't that a thing too?
you can do a reverse, which is where you would need to purchase the property that you're going to buy before you can sell what you already own.
Yeah.
So those are more complicated exchanges, but
Yeah.
very, very valuable tools if you find yourself in that situation.
I knew a guy who, a client who bought a property for his daughter. And then he realized, oh my goodness, like I have a bit of a tax issue here, because he cashed out some money from other accounts to buy that property cash for his daughter. And so then he was trying to do the reverse 1031 on another property, and that's how I met him. And I'd never heard of the reverse 1031, but it seems like in instances like that, it could really save your bacon if you had a taxable event. You're like, wait, I don't want to pay all this in taxes. Let's undo this a little bit.
Yeah, they're very valuable tools, especially in markets like today, where it's the buyer is just really struggling to get the property, that you have to be fast on your feet. You're struggling with multiple offers, and you may be in a position where you've got to buy well in advance of when you can sell, or your sale is going to take longer to go than your buy.
And that's a good point too, because then maybe we'll get into this in the next segment, but then you don't have to worry about the time constraints. You've already identified the property, you've bought it, and then you're saying just do a reverse. In today's market, that's what people are preferring to do.
We're seeing an increase in the number of reverse exchanges.
Okay.
Yeah, you still have some time constraints, but you've 180 days to sell the property that you're selling. So
that's tons of time.
It's tons of time. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll be back right after this, and when we come back with Donalee Ham with asset preservation. By the way, how can they get a hold of you, Donalee?
You can call us at 1-800-282-1031. We are always in the office ready to take anybody's questions.
I like that
Easy.
number, 1031 for a 1031 exchange.
That's perfect. 1-800
282-1031.
1031. Awesome. We'll be back in just a moment.
So how would you like an offer on your home today? So how would you like an all-cash offer on your home today, no matter what kind of condition it's in? It's not too good to be true. Don't worry about the repairs. Reach out to Johnny Jennings and the Made for More Living team. You can trust him. There's a reason why they have so many 5-star Google reviews. So don't worry about the repairs, whether you don't have the money or the time. Johnny Jennings will help you out. He'll give you an all-cash offer, no matter what kind of condition your home is in. But you got to do it today. Reach out or just Google Johnny Jennings, Made for More Living.